Hello and welcome to FTTR. I am Hugh McQuaid and this is the weekly wrestling wrap-up, edition number 2, coming straight at you now. This is the weekly news show where I round up some of the biggest stories in wrestling news and discuss them at as much length as I feel. So, first of all, not to get all political, but I'm just going to leave this picture of CM Punk directly above my face for about 5 seconds. Now, let's talk about the news. It's been a bit of a, compared to last week anyway, it's been a hell of a slower week in terms of news stories and news topics to talk about. There's a few big ones in here that I'm going to dive into, but nothing sort of as monumental as a Vince McMahon sex scandal. We've got sort of the ramifications of that. We've got some movie news, interesting, and a few more tidbits. But shall we start off with the cursed show that is Forbidden Door? Right, injuries. Let's talk about injuries because there's been a lot, not just in AEW but in WWE as well. It seems this is the plague of injuries have taken the wrestling landscape by storm. So of course we had Cody in WWE, we've got Rhea Ripley out in WWE, we've got Kenny Omega still out from injury, we've got CM Punk out from injury, we've got Bryan Danielson out from injury. There's a lot of people, particularly some big stars who were supposed to be on the Forbidden Door card, and it appears another one has also been pulled from the show. Tomohiro Ishii of New Japan Pro Wrestling will no longer compete at Forbidden Door in the All-Atlantic Fatal 4-Way match. Instead, he's been replaced by Clark Connors. Now, I'm not going to pretend to know, like I know anything about Clark Connors. I really don't. I don't really have a clue who he is in the slightest. But I'm sure he's great. I'm sure he's a fantastic wrestler. The sad bit here is Ishii, because Ishii, of course, you hear all the stories and stuff about how some of the matches he had in PWG and Rev Pro were incredible. I've not actually seen many of them, but I was very, very excited to see Ishii square off with Miro. I think that was going to be the big sort of gasp in that match, was when Pac and Malachi Black get taken out and then it's just Miro staring down with Ishii. I thought that was going to be like the big spot of the match, but now that's been taken away so annoyingly because of injury, and I just don't understand what's going on with all these injuries. It's absolutely mental, a mental time to be into pro wrestling, and Forbidden Door in general just has this swirl of almost negativity about it, and I don't want to harp on the negativity. It's the first time that I've seen as much negativity towards an AEW show in its entirety. I think all the others have sort of been at least well received and hyped up at the start. I think Double or Nothing had a bit of a messy build as well, but not sort of this extent where the internet wrestling community seems to be like having a civil war with itself about Forbidden Door. And yeah, it's this Sunday. I'm excited. I'm really excited. I think it's going to be a cracking show from top to bottom. It's just the build hasn't been particularly great, and it's just a shame to see Ishii out of this match, because I thought it was going to be great. Clark Connors, props to the guy for filling in and taking that spot. I'm sure he'll be great. But Ishii versus Miro, that's what we all wanted, right? Next up, we're going to talk about some of the fallout from the scandal, the sex scandal with Vince McMahon. That phrase still kind of makes me shiver, but it involves John Laurinaitis. John Laurinaitis is on administrative leave at the moment. He's seemingly stepped down from that position. Admin leave, you know what I mean? It's like weird corporate speak for we don't want you there. And he's been replaced by Bruce Pritchard. Now, it's almost like, what's the word? Stuck between a rock and a hard place, because apparently, according to reports, neither of these two are particularly well liked backstage. Bruce Pritchard is heavily involved with Vince. Vince is in a circle with Laurinaitis. And who knows what this is going to mean for the WWE product as a whole. This entire shake-up has been absolutely mental. absolutely mental. And John Laurinaitis, his views and the way he portrays women in particular, not great, really not great. But then again, you look at NXT 2.0, which is sort of being moulded by Pritchard as well. It's not the best representation of women's wrestling, or at least the representation of women's wrestling that I want to see, which is sort of like sports, if not like bikini models and stuff like that. I get you've got very talented wrestlers down there in NXT, and Mandy Rose is doing really good stuff, but I watched a promo from this week's NXT 2.0 and I was like, and it was Wendy Chu. I was like, oh, this is what's happening down there. It's just so far removed from what NXT was that it's hard to get excited for anything like that. And seeing the shake-ups in main roster as well, now Pritchard's seemingly going to be split everywhere. He's like just peeled himself everywhere into every aspect of WWE. Maybe it'll either add more consistency to the product, or it's going to completely backfire and everything's going to go up in flames. There's those two options. HBK, I think, is doing a solid enough job with his booking and his sort of taking over from Triple H in that regard in NXT 2.0. But the product as a whole just seems like a weird vision. And I know I've gone on a tangent here. I'm not talking about Laurinaitis, but I didn't really want to talk about that man. So, you know what I mean? It makes me a bit uncomfortable. So yeah, Laurinaitis is out, potentially. Whether he'll be gone from the company is still up in the air, but who knows at this point? There's still so many things that are being uncovered and talked about that this could go anywhere. This could snowball completely. Just mental stuff. Okay, positive news. Triple H is seemingly back in NXT. The daddy Trips is back at NXT. Maybe not taking the reins, maybe not like piloting. No, what do you call it? Captaining? No, that can't be right. Let's go with piloting the ship and sailing the ship to new areas. That got away from me. That did. Yeah, Triple H being back. I hope it doesn't put too much stress on him. Let's just put that out there straight away. But I think we all fell in love with Triple H's vision of pro wrestling. NXT 1.0, the black and gold brand, even though it sort of petered off at the end, I think it was one of the most consistent runs of excellent wrestling ever. It was like 5 years of just phenomenal stories, great characters, great matches. Maybe I'm looking back on that with rose-tinted glasses, but you can't deny the absolute just talent and buzz that was around that product at the time. So to see that he's back in the Performance Centre, maybe he's going to sort of trickle in those ideas, those ideologies back into NXT 2.0. Because NXT 2.0, as I've just said, is batshit crazy and weird and sort of not interesting to me in the slightest. And I want to see it get back to NXT 1.0. Because at this point, what is there in WWE to sort of get excited about? You've got no top championships, and when they're around, they're being defended by Roman Reigns against Brock Lesnar again, and nothing. So I want NXT back. I really want NXT 1.0 back. I think it's sorely missed. I've just missed it. I've missed it. I have to try and get that fixed from NXT UK, and NXT UK I think is doing some great stuff. It's like they've adopted Triple H's 1.0 philosophy of storytelling when they do the bulk tapings. Like the turn from Trent Seven on Tyler Bate was phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. I can't wait to see where that goes. And I don't feel like you're going to get that in NXT 2.0. There's no sort of heel turn that has been built up to matter that much. So yeah, Daddy Trips. Hopefully he's taking the bull by the horns. He's back in the driver's seat of NXT 2.0. and maybe you can sort of add a bit more flair, style, skulls, maybe, and maybe wrestling fans can get back NXT 1.0. Not going to happen. I'm just going to say that right now. It ain't happening. Would be nice. At least some of the booking philosophies, just sprinkle them in there. Sprinkle them in long-term storytelling. Cruiserweights. Let's do that, please. Right, so this is an interesting one. So it was reported by, I believe, Deadline reported this, that Zac Efron is in talks and negotiations to star in a film about the Von Erichs. Now, for anyone who's seen the Dark Side of the Ring documentary, the story of the Von Erichs is one of tragedy, love, and just craftsmanship of a wrestling family. And I'm really excited for this. I'll tell you some of the details. So, of course, it hasn't been stated who Zac Efron's going to play in the film. He'll be playing one of the Von Erichs. We don't know who. It's being directed by the same director as Martha Marcy May Marlene, starring Elizabeth Olsen, which is a really, really good film. And the exciting thing about this is the studio. So it's being produced by A24. If you are not into your indie horror like I am, A24 have produced some of the most out there, weirdest, abstract horror films of the past 10 years, as well as some stellar dramas as well. So they produce things like Hereditary, Men, Midsummer, basically every Ari Aster film. I'm pretty sure The Lighthouse was there as well. And so many of these films have just been like indie darlings. Sensational stuff. Hereditary is a fantastic film. So to see that sort of philosophy applied to a wrestling film, in which you can get into the nitty gritty and the drama and the sort of heartbreak of that story, I think sounds absolutely fascinating, because I don't think they'd shy away from any of the more heartbreaking aspects of the Von Erich story. And it's going to be incredibly interesting, because of course you had Fighting With My Family, which is, a great film, really, really great, but that was a bit sanitized to a degree. Stephen Mitchell did a great job directing that, but it was a little bit puff piece WWE in that regard. A24 taking this, I feel like we could be onto something wrestler-esque. And The Wrestler is one of the greatest films of all time, with an absolutely standout performance from Mickey Rourke. So for anyone who's worried about the performance side as well, Zac Efron's fantastic. He's not just Troy Bolton. As much as I like to think he is, he's not. And he's not just the guy from The Greatest Showman. He's a really solid actor. Him playing Ted Bundy, he was really good in that film with a really long name that I can't remember the name of. It's that one. But he's done some really, really solid stuff and really solid acting. I think he was in The Paperboy as well with Nicole Kidman. He was really good in that. So there's a lot of good things going into this film, and it'd be nice to see an indie wrestling film. I've not yet watched Heels, but that seems like a similar vein. It seems a bit darker, a bit more grittier, and I'm so excited for this. I think this will be really fantastic to look through that A24 indie lens into wrestling and looking into the world of professional wrestling. I think that would be fascinating, and maybe, just maybe, we'll get this before the Hulk Hogan film with Chris Hemsworth, which I feel like was announced ages ago, and I don't know if that's ever going to happen. I think that's in sort of limbo / purgatory. It's never going to come to fruition, I don't think, which is sad, because I really want to see that. And another piece of news that broke recently is Lady Frost requesting her release from Impact. Lady Frost was only sort of signed about 8 months ago. Hasn't been very long at all, but she's already requested her release from Impact. Maybe that's because she's not being used correctly, but if I was AEW, I would scoop up Lady Frost. Everything I've seen from her has been great. She was fantastic in the NWA. She was really good from what I saw in Impact, and especially in the ladies' Ultimate X match. I thought she was great in that. And I'd scoop her up immediately. Bolster that women's division in AEW, because it sort of needs that. I think tangent from the news of Lady Frost requesting a release. I think they need a big reset on the women's division, and I think the way to do it is to just have Toni Storm win at Forbidden Door and start from there. It's like a cut-off point, and then rebuild the women's division with good stories, good characters, and consistent motivations. That's what I would do. I'd put the belt on Toni Storm, but yeah, I'm not very smart, so you know what I mean. But Lady Frost would fit fantastically in the AEW women's division. She's got a great look, great moveset, she's very high flying as well, and she's pretty good at promos as well, from what I remember. So I'd like to see her transition over to AEW and sort of take the reins over there. I think that'd be great. Really good stuff. And the final bit of news that I'm going to talk about today is just the awful sort of body shaming from Booker T on Adam Cole. Now, I know this is sort of blown up a lot recently, but, saying a guy needs to put more muscle on, it's just not cool sort of in this day and age in the slightest, because, Adam Cole he's one of the best wrestlers in the world, and that is irrelevant to what he looks like. There's no need to sort of put this pressure on guys and women, make them need to look a certain way. I think that's, really dangerous in this day and age. And Booker T was completely in the wrong. He was completely in the wrong in this, and what he said. And I'm so happy that many people of the wrestling community came out to defend Adam Cole, and especially Hangman Page. I think Hangman Page's comment was fantastic. It was just unnecessary. No need to comment on it whatsoever, because we live in a world of professional wrestling where top guys aren't jacked. We know this. They're not, Hogan and Warrior and stuff like that. We've moved on. We've moved past that. You don't need muscles to make it in this business anymore. You can just make it by being an incredibly talented wrestler, an incredibly charismatic performer, and just one of the best wrestlers in the world. So props to Adam Cole. I love Adam Cole, one of my favourite wrestlers working right now. And why, Booker T? Was there any need for that whatsoever? No, not at all. And that's me done. That's the weekly wrestling wrap-up. I've covered some of the stories of this week. Let me know your thoughts on any of the stories down in the comments below, and I'll try and reply to every single one of you. Hit subscribe to FTTR and help support the channel. We just crossed 200 subs, which is ace. And yeah, hit subscribe and have a nice day.